What's up lovely viewers, ShowsWeb is back again with a scary mood, as of a horror thriller movie recap, named, Wrong Turn, released in 2003. The film begins with Hallie and Rich, two college students who are rock climbing in the West Virginia forest. Rich reaches the summit and gazes out the window, while Hallie keeps climbing. Hallie begins to struggle and falls, but she is caught by her climbing line. Rich doesn't answer when she asks him to pull her up to the top of the cliff. Rich is found dead, and his body is tossed off the cliff. Someone then begins to pull Hallie up the cliff using her climbing line. She jumps the line and lands on Rich's dead body. She manages to flee and witnesses the trees moving and creepy chuckles. Hallie is almost reaching her car when she trips over a piece of barbed wire and is dragged back into the woods by an unknown force while screaming. Chris Flynn, a medical student, is traveling through the West Virginia mountains on his way to a job interview. He is compelled to take an alternate route due to a chemical spill on the road ahead. He comes to a stop at an old derelict petrol station and meets an elderly man. The old man directs him to the alternate way and then hands Chris a map with directions. Chris drives off on the dirt road. While Chris is traveling, his car begins to lose control and collides with a stranded Range Rover in the middle of the road. The car belongs to Jesse, Carly, her fiancé copyright Scott, and a couple, Evan and Francine, who are on a hiking vacation. After their tires were punctured, Jesse discovered a piece of barbed wire in the woods that had been connected to a tree across the road. Jesse, Carly, and Scott venture into the woods in search of assistance. Chris joins them, while Evan and Francine continue to work on the autos. Evan begins to fix their car after Evan and Francine have a round of oral sex. While Francine gets in Chris' car, Evan is working on his car when he hears a noise in the woods and goes to investigate. Francine notices that he is absent after a while and walks into the woods to seek him. Francine ventures farther into the woods, where she discovers his sneaker and Evan's severed ear. A figure puts barbed wire around Francine's mouth, tearing it open as she stumbles back. As Chris, Jesse, Carly, and Scott look for aid, they come to an isolated cabin. They enter the cabin and find a variety of objects, including barbed wire, vehicle keys, odds and ends, and human body parts on the refrigerator and in the bathroom. They are terrified and attempt to flee, but they hear the occupants returning and are forced to hide. Three ugly cannibalistic mountain guys enter the cabin and bring in Francine's lifeless body. Chris, Jesse, Carly, and Scott watch in horror as her body is murdered and eaten into pieces. The pals move discreetly to the door as the cannibals fall asleep. Chris holds the door open for Jesse, Carly, and Scott to safely exit. Chris checks to see if the cannibals are still sleeping while keeping the door open. Sadly, Sawtooth awakens, and Chris flees. When Jesse notices this, she, Carly, and Scott rush after him. Sawtooth warns the other cannibals and starts chasing them. The party takes cover in a clearing surrounded by many cars, which they understand are the mutants' victims' cars. Chris deviates and is shot in the leg with a shotgun. Scott saves him by acting as a decoy, which allows Jesse and Carly to take one of the cannibals' trucks. Chris climbs into the truck, and they go in search of Scott. Carly spots Scott in the woods. Scott gets hit 3 times in the back with arrows as he begins to get into the truck. The arrow nearly strikes the others, and Chris compels Jesse to drive and flee quickly. Scott's body is picked up by the cannibals and taken back to their cabin. Chris, Jesse, and Carly come to a halt on the road and must continue on foot, but Carly stays and is still upset by Scott's death. Jesse and Chris console her as they continue walking. They come to an old watchtower and begin to climb it. They also come across the radio and use it to ask for aid, but they do not receive a response. They notice the cannibals, who are equipped with torches and approaching the watchtower's base. The cannibals are alerted when the radio responds to their call. The cannibals shoot through the glass and destroy the radio. The cannibals set fire to the watchtower after climbing the ladder and entering it. Chris, Carly, and Jesse flee by leaping out the window and into a neighboring tree. They start climbing, but Three Finger has already scaled the tree ahead of them. Chris and Jesse start climbing higher while Carly rests. Chris and Jesse make it to the other tree, but Three Finger creeps up behind Carly and slashes her head in two with an axe. causing her body to tumble through the woods as Chris and Jesse look on in despair. They flee the cannibals and take refuge in a cave by a waterfall till the next morning. Chris embraces Jesse as she awakens from a nightmare. The mountain men locate them just as they find a way out of the trees and push Chris down the hill, abduct Jesse, and take her back to their lodge. Chris escapes the fall and encounters a sheriff, but the sheriff is slain by an arrow in his eye from the woods before he can convince him of what is going on. Chris climbs into the police car and attempts to drive away, but the keys are nowhere to be found. Chris goes into hiding and watches as the cannibal loads the sheriff's body into the truck and drives it back to the cottage. Chris attaches himself to the underbelly of their truck. When the cannibals arrive at the cabin, Jesse is bound with a dog leash and tied to a bed. Chris, who is driving the police truck, drives into the cabin and enters one-eye just as she is going to be slain. Chris unties Jesse, and Jesse uses an arrow to stab Sawtooth in the back. She and Chris also fight Three Finger and kill him with an axe. Chris and Jesse rush outside when they see the cannibals are still alive. Chris has only one shotgun shell left, which he fires towards the truck, blowing up the cabin with the cannibals still inside. Chris and Jesse, driving the cannibals' truck, return to the petrol station. Chris, terribly injured, climbs out of the truck and destroys the map to the cannibals' hut, ensuring that no one ever goes into the woods again. Chris jumps back into the vehicle as Jesse drives out into the woods. The titles are cut short by a sequence in which a deputy sheriff investigates and picks through the wreckage of the cabin. Unfortunately, Three Finger, who survived the blast, comes up behind the deputy and kills him.